day, buddy. You go ahead.
Come on, Estey, do it!
All right, let's do it. Hello again, my amazing Canadian freedom, truth, health warriors. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you for once again showing up at beautiful Queen's Park, of course, in the cosmopolitan city of Toronto, Canada. Woo. And I want to start off by thanking all of you for cherishing our path to freedom, of course, and as I always like to say, for celebrating humanity, am I right? Hello?
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, of course, for being authentic, for standing in your own truth, for your absolute stellar honesty. And thank you, everyone, for not, of course, abandoning your principles, as I said before, in the face of this unprecedented assault on our democratic values and, of course, our medical freedoms. And to that point, everyone, and I've also said this before, but I think it's worth repeating, thank you for not compromising your bodily health integrity. You're not going to allow a small group of scumbags within the pharmaceutical drug industry to control your bloodstream and health. Correct?
Correct.
All right. And you guys are an absolute inspiration, truly inspiring. And as I've said before, I think we easily have over 1 million Truth, Health, Freedom warriors all across Canada. And that's the great news. And of course, we are watching, feeling, and experiencing an absolute global movement for truth, freedom, and health. And that's the great news about this pandemic, you know. Obviously, we've got some petty tyrants within our intellectually bankrupt government. We know this. But it's us, my friends. We, the people, have the power. And I'm going to show you at the end of this speech one of the solutions, which is our Canadian Bill of Rights. But first of all, everyone, I want to thank you as well, of course, again, for your stellar, stupendous public dedication, demonstrating for truth, freedom, and health. And I want to thank you for being bold, honest, open, and true. Thank you for showing your resolute courage, your conviction, your intestinal fortitude. And thank you very much, of course, for your amazing contribution when it comes to public service, right? And thank you so much for your deep, courageous commitment and support for our community, our country, and for the world. You know, I've always said, we Canadian truthers, we're showing our community, our country, and the rest of the world how it's done. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a short story. I was here in Queen's Park a few weeks ago, and a woman from Europe came up to me, and she said, Jason, I've been traveling all over the world, and I think in Canada, she was basically saying that you guys protest better than anybody around the world in terms of your voices, your actions. Do you believe that? I think it's true, and again, this is why we're going to have a lot of victories coming up. And again, my friends, never feel demoralized. Do not feel humiliated. We know this intellectually bankrupt government, elements of the CIA, they want you enveloped in fear porn. It's all about fear. And fear makes you irrational. But we don't have to be feared of. And I know you guys are not fear. Again, thank you for your absolute, resolute courage and conviction through these trying times.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
How am I doing so far?
Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Is everybody feeling good? All right. Now, what's one of the main solutions? I'll tell you what the solution is, everybody. It's our Canadian Bill of Rights. Using it and enforcing it. There are no loopholes. And it was written in 1961, of course, by John Diefenbaker, the most patriotic of all prime ministers.
God, we love rights. Hopium.
Actually, Right here, everybody. This is why Justin Trudeau is going to have to eat his words. You know, his threat that we can't travel outside Canada. Oh. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. What the hell's going on here?
I know.
Sorry. Testing. Just gonna adjust the volume. Sorry. John Diefenbaker, everybody. He said here, this is what how he summed up our Canadian Bill of Rights and what he thought of the Canadian people in our amazing country. I'm a Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, or free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and all mankind. Isn't that amazing? And yet, with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, do we have any of that amazing kind of quote? No, because Pierre-Elliott Trudeau and his lawyers wrote up the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? And Pierre-Elliott Trudeau was a communist sympathizer. He basically loved communism, right? And because he told you over and over again he wanted a strong centralized government. And now the Charter, it sounds great. And let's go over the Charter real quick, my friends, and then I'm going to show you the difference of the Canadian Bill of Rights.
No.
The Charter says, and we got a lot of people, by the way, everybody, this is why I get so excited. We got people coming out of the woodwork trying to pump up the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I believe it's because some of them are trying to distract us, because we have made amazing momentum. We have educated thousands of people on our amazing Canadian Bill of Rights, recognizing our human rights and fundamental freedoms. We're educating the police and the businesses. The Charter, everyone, it says your rights are guaranteed in the Charter, and it says they're subject only to reasonable grounds prescribed by law, as can be demonstratively justified, and here's the doublespeak, in a free and democratic society. Well, guess what? That's a loophole, right? My friends, that's a real problem. The government is dictating your rights. If you invoke the Charter, the government's dictating your rights. They're telling you, right? And it shows, my friends, when it says your rights are guaranteed, that's not 100%. That's not absolute. And it certainly doesn't mean your rights are coming from God, that they're inalienable. But the Canadian Bill of Rights, again, I always show this right at the top of the shirt, my friends, on the bill. It says, Tommy, can you zoom on this if you don't mind for 1 second? I'm not sure. Sorry, we keep talking. It says, this act recognizes your human rights and recognizes and protects your human rights and your fundamental freedoms. So it shows our rights and freedoms are inalienable. John Diefenbaker in the White House that cared for the Canadian people in the country, he's showing you, my friends, our rights are already recognized. Just like the U.S. Bill of Rights in that respect. They already are there, so they can't be trampled on. And anybody who tries to trample on our rights, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Just like Justin Trudeau and some of the petty tyrants, right? Mr. Diva Boy Justin Trudeau, he is going to be in a lot of trouble because he's going against the Canadian Bill of Rights, which says, remember Section 1A, we're going to read it off in a bit, my friends. It says that our rights to freedom, liberty, happiness, security of the person, it comes to us by God, it says in so many words. And also equality before the law. You see what I'm saying? So the vaccine passport, of course, goes totally against that. It's completely illegal, we know this. But if you invoke the Charter, everybody, one of the problems when you invoke the Canadian Charter, and a lot of people that pump up the Charter, they don't tell you this, and they should. When you invoke the Charter, of course, you have to appear before a judge. And a judge is appointed by the government, paid by the government. A real conflict of interest. See? But the Canadian Bill of Rights, one of the advantages, I'm trying to educate people, and the amazing Jane Scarf, she's on her team. She's with Rebecca Shepherd at Stand For Thee, of course. They work together. Jane Scarf has done amazing work on the Canadian Bill of Rights and digging in to show you the loopholes of the Charter, right? And what was I going to say? Oh, obviously, again, it's a conflict of interest. Now, the Canadian Bill of Rights, though, you should be able to get a jury of your peers when you invoke the Canadian Bill of Rights. Dave Freedom, who's again an amazing patriot, he's in court right now. He will be going to court. He's seen the Crown. He's using the Canadian Bill of Rights. And Jane has said she's never seen it in all her years of law, where Dave Freedom told her, the Crown are so nervous right now. They've tried to make deal after deal after deal with Dave, saying, just use the charter, Dave. We'll expunge your record. We'll do this, we'll do that. And he says, no. And he says, no, I'm not going to make a deal either with in front of my children. I'm using my Canadian Bill of Rights, and that's our way out of this tyranny, everyone, right? I also want to show you something. Thanks for doing this, Johnny. I really appreciate it. We're getting a lot of waves on Facebook, people waving or comments. So I'll read them later. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tommy. So look at this. Can you see that, Mr. Tommy? All right?
Yeah, you're good.
Henry David Thoreau? I've never heard this man. I'm sure he's very famous. He said, disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. The obedient must be slaves. And that's right, and I thank you, everyone. Thank you for educating others, as I've said before, because you're trying to lay the foundation to free people from control, from fear, and from the servitude of bondage of slavery. Freedom! Freedom! Merry Christmas, exactly. We don't want to be slaves, right? And we're not going to be slaves. Malcolm X. Charlie, you might want to hear this one. Malcolm X said nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice. If you're a man, you take it. You agree? Absolutely. Thanks for all that. Now, if I may, everybody, I think you're going to enjoy this part. Again, our Canadian Bill of Rights here. Preamble. The Parliament of Canada affirming that the Canadian nation is founded upon principles that acknowledge the supremacy of God. Remember, everybody, the Canadian Bill of Rights shows you that our rights are inalienable. The government doesn't want you to know that, right? All the politicians, they pump up the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms because it doesn't show that your rights and freedoms are from God. It's the opposite. It says they're guaranteed.
I'm going today to Suzanne's house.
Now, one more time. It's founded upon the principles that acknowledge the supremacy of God, the dignity and the worth of the human person, and the position of the family in a society of free men and free institutions. Affirming also that men and institutions remain free only when freedom is founded upon respect for moral and spiritual values and rule of law. And being serious of enshrining these principles and the human rights and fundamental freedoms derived from them in a Bill of Rights which shall reflect the respect of Parliament for its constitutional authority and which shall ensure the protection of these rights and freedoms. Finish it up! Finish it up! Almost done. Therefore, Her Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate House of Commons of Canada, enacts as follows. Now, part one, my friends, listen to this one, please. It is hereby recognized and declared that in Canada there have existed and shall continue to exist, without discrimination by reason of race, national origin, color, religion, or sex, the following human rights and fundamental freedoms. Namely, A, the right of the individual to life, liberty, security of the person. Hello. Love you, man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
Thank you. Hyman. I almost got it. Thank you. The right of the individual to life, liberty, security of the person, enjoyment of property. The Charter, by the way, everybody, I've had several friends and researchers look into it. There doesn't seem to be enjoyment of property on the Charter.
There is no property.
That's a real problem. And the right not to be deprived, therefore, except by due process of law. B, the right of the individual to equality before the law, protection of the law. C, freedom of religion. D, freedom of speech. E, freedom of assembly and association. And F, freedom of speech. Freedom of the press, pardon me. This is amazing. And finally, everybody on the Canadian Bill of Rights will sum it up. Number 2, every law of Canada shall, unless it is expressly declared by an act of Parliament of Canada, that it shall operate notwithstanding the Canadian Bill of Rights, be so construed and applied as to not abrogate, abridge, or infringe, or to authorize the abrogation, abridgment, or infringement of any of the rights or freedoms herein recognized and declared. And in particular, no law of Canada shall be construed or applied so as to authorize or affect the arbitrary detention, imprisonment, or exile of any person. And it goes on and on and on with amazing values. And I believe, everybody, it's truthers like you. This is why we are going to once again make Canada,
Gotta look, man. I gotta get this.
enshrine our common law, excuse me, and we are going to once again be a free and democratic country. We're going to shine with democracy, man. Because this is a great country, right? A lot of people.
Not really. Not right now. It's not.
Not right now, but it's going to be again. And a lot of people, again, everybody, you know, I've said before, right? We know a lot of people sacrifice their lives in Canada and the United States to come over here, often across the water, sometimes, you know, raising families, children, and they sacrifice their lives. And we have to honor those people, and they risk their lives. Same with our soldiers, right? They fought for this great country, and they shed their blood. And this is why we're not going to surrender, we're not going to give up, and we're certainly not going to capitulate to this deep state evil. It's a very small group of scum. We got the numbers, my friends. Thank you so much. We got Christmas music issues in here. Jason Cosmic Truth Authority. You can find me on BitChute Rumble. I love you guys. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, my friend. Thank you. We're going to win. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.